loves one that looks fancy.
So, if the stars are not balls of burning gas millions of light years away, but rather angelic luminations, and these angels can fall, and there are those who have fallen, those who have wandered and transgressed, what I find myself wondering at this point is this. How can we even trust the lights we see with our eyes through our telescopes if they are being projected from such fallen, wandering, angelic luminaries? In the book of Jude, the author is delivering a harsh warning against, quote, the ungodly people who pervert the grace of God into a license for immorality and deny Jesus Christ, our only sovereign and Lord. In this short book, Jude uses a variety of very colorful and interesting poetic language to describe these false teachers. Verse 11 says, "Woe to them! They have taken the way of Cain. They have rushed for profit into Balaam's error. They have been destroyed in Korah's rebellion. These people are blemishes at your love feasts, eating with you without the slightest qualm, shepherds who feed only themselves. They are clouds without rain, blown along by the wind, autumn trees without fruit and uprooted, twice dead. They are wild waves of the sea, foaming up their shame, wandering stars for whom blackest darkness has been reserved forever." It is the following verse where Jude quotes the book of Enoch, saying, "Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about them. See, the Lord is coming with thousands upon thousands of his holy ones to judge everyone, and to convict all of them of all the ungodly acts they have committed in their ungodliness, and of all the defiant words ungodly sinners have spoken against him." And this is very telling, I would argue, that this mention of the wandering stars and their judgment is mentioned in such close context to the mention of the book of Enoch itself. And yes, Jude is speaking about human false teachers, godless people who are leading other people astray by corrupting the gospel of grace itself. And yes, the mention of the wandering stars is being applied in a metaphorical sense to make his point. However, the metaphor really only makes sense in the first place when we recognize it in this theme of deception, of opposition to God, and of judgment. In other words, why would you compare a blasphemous false teacher who is leading people away from God to a wandering star, or a planet as they're now regarded, if those wandering stars, those planets, are simply normal, natural functions of God's created order? No, the metaphorical usage of this term in Jude, in the context in which it is applied, only makes sense if indeed the wandering stars are in fact what we see described in more detail in the book of Enoch. In Enoch chapter 80, it says, "And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order prescribed, and these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them. And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them. And they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods, and evil shall be multiplied upon them, and punishment shall come upon them so as to destroy all." Earlier in Enoch in chapter 21, it says, "And there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains and burning with fire. Then I said, For what sin are they bound, and on what account have they been cast in hither? Then said Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me, and was chief over them, and said, Enoch, why dost thou ask? Why art thou eager for the truth? These are the number of the stars of heaven which have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and are bound here 10,000 years. The time entailed by their sins are consummated. And then 2 Corinthians also speaks about the issue of false teachers, and it has this to say: For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. And so, while I do realize that probably even a majority of people who are looking into the flat earth might find it ridiculous to suggest that the spherical appearance of the planets could be a deception from the fallen angels themselves, I still have to admit that from a biblical point of view, and absolutely from the perspective of the Enochian cosmology, this idea seems quite plausible. And another thing I find interesting at this point is to note the parallels that would seem to be in place with the concept that I've talked about in the past in regards to evolution, and how evolution itself is first and foremost a spiritual teaching, a doctrine of demons which stretches far back into the ancient occult past. And the modern Darwinian and cosmic evolutionary theories parading themselves as science can be regarded as more or less temporary repackagings of these ancient Gnostic philosophies. And so if we remind ourselves that all of these layers of deception, the layers of false origins and false cosmology, the layers of false spirituality and mysticism, the layers of modern deception such as the controlled mainstream media and the education system and the governments, etc., all these pieces are being controlled by the father of lies, Satan himself, then is it really crazy to entertain the idea that at least as far back as the day when Galileo first assembled a telescope and pointed it at the night sky, these wandering stars, these rebellious luminaries, or these fallen angels could have been participating in a calculated effort to introduce and promote this new materialistic, atheistic, heliocentric model of the heavens? We are seeing more and more what the luminaries really look like now, radiant and fiery and appearing almost alive, like rainbow fire from within a crystalline setting, each one differing from one another in their patterns, colors, frequencies. But if we really think about that particular line in Enoch where it says, "And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order prescribed, and these shall alter their orbits and tasks." The question of altering their orbits is a fairly straightforward one, but altering their tasks? What do you think that might mean? Is it possible that these heavenly bodies, which appear circular and static when viewed through the looking glass, through the telescope, are simply the projections of light designed to convince the observer of this lying cosmology? Does the Bible not speak of the enemy using lying signs and wonders? Doesn't the scripture tell us that God himself allows this great deception to unfold, capable of even deceiving the very elect if that were possible? You see, many discerning Christians today have no problem of basically entertaining this very real and disturbing possibility when it comes to things like UFOs, or the Norway spiral, or the apparitions of Fatima, or so many other examples. We actually have no difficulty in accepting the possibility that Satan and his demons can quite easily appear to human observers as flying craft, or glowing orbs, or ghosts, or ascended masters, or aliens, or whatever else. We can easily imagine the great deception involving any number of these much more anomalous examples. But the planets, we don't even think to question that. We regard them as being obvious and undeniable facets of God's original intended design. They are assumed to be part of the created order, even though the Bible itself never mentions the planets, only the sun, moon, and stars. And the book of Jude and the book of Enoch make it rather clear that wandering stars are in fact fallen angels. Not only this, but conversely, when you survey the expanse of the occult and magical histories, we find an absolute fixation with the planets. The Bible itself mentions constellations of stars, but the various occult systems of astrological zodiacs take them and turn them into a tool of divination or witchcraft. And this is where the planets start to take center stage. Throughout ancient times, the planets were associated with the pantheons of pagan gods almost ubiquitously, and this really should be a huge red flag to us. And then, if we take an honest, unfiltered look at the arenas and individuals involved in the development of the so-called Copernican revolution, we see the same dubious fingerprints of occult groups like the Jesuit order all over it, and scientists, quote-unquote, who are fascinated with things like alchemy and the Kabbalah. For some time now, I've been exploring the idea that this entire false heliocentric Copernican system was conceived of and perpetuated by Satan, in order to essentially craft a new narrative through which he and his fallen minions could once again present themselves to humanity as our saviors and gods. This is the entire purpose of the whole Ancient Aliens meme. So, in that light, the notion that these fallen luminaries, these deceivers, might in fact deceive the entire human race for hundreds of years into believing that there are other worlds out there, and thus providing a premise from which extra-terrestrials could then come from, honestly, to me at this point, doesn't seem as far-fetched as one might think.